Chandas is basically one of the Vedangas. So before we talk about Vedangas, essentially, so the Vedas consist of Vedas. We call Vedas, but Vedas is just not those Rig Veda, Yajur, and Sama and Atharvana Veda. It also has a few other things called Samhitas, Brahmanas, and Aranyakas, and Upanishads. So all of these comprise together called, the Vedas. Because normally when you see Rig Veda, you see those fat books in the bookstore. They mostly are Samhitas. Samhitas are basically compendiums of all the stotram or slokas or richis is what they call Rig Veda. So this is basically Samhita is one compendium of all of those listed in one order, but then they break it up into Brahmanas and Aranyakas and Upanishads. And the Brahmanas actually involves more of ritual ceremonies, how to use, when to use, what is procedure. All of those will be mentioned in Brahmanas. Actually, that's actually how the name Brahmin came. Brahmins actually because they perform the ceremonial rites to do on special occasions, and they actually are experts in Brahmanas part of the Vedas. So, I mean, they also learn Samhitas, but the acts that they perform in the temple or daily the worship, what they do, they were taken from the Brahmanas. That's why you see Satapada Brahmana. You'll see some more names which I'll cover later on when I cover the Vedas. But for now, just I want to acknowledge that we have various aspects of Vedas, that is beyond just the Samhitas. And the other one is Aranyakas. Aranyakas also one part of, and then we call Upanishads. And Upanishad Upa is near and Nishad is sitting. So you sit near. And Upanishad were made to kind of basically make the content of Vedas more easier to grasp. So they arrange everything in a kind of a story layout so that it's very easy for people to understand. And when you say Vedanta, they actually confuse. Vedanta is because Upanishad is actually called Vedanta because the sequence of these four, the Upanishad comes at the end. So Vedas is end of the Vedas. So the last part of Vedas, what you call the constituents is called Upanishad. That's why we always associate Vedanta with all this. Like you see Katha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad. So all of the Upanishads, they have very beautiful stories to captivate our mind. At the same time, give the moral of the story and what the life is all about, the philosophy, everything they put in there. So it's more easy to discuss. If you see any discussion that you see out of like in any kind of discourse, spiritual, they always base out of Upanishad because they have a kind of a very called a Sanatan stamp on it. They feel very ancient, and they put very allegorical. Everything is allegorical there, and it's very easy to understand. And the Upanishad we won't cover right now, but I just want to acknowledge as a passing by note for the Upanishads. So, and it comes to the actual of the Chandas. So, Chandas is where are you? Yeah. So, Chandas, as I said earlier, is Vedanga, and so I just discussed about Vedas, about the Brahmanas, Aranyakas. These are all Vedas, and then the Vedangas came later. The Vedangas, so when what you call as the when Vedavyas wrote the Vedas, basically he did not write them. He basically categorized them into four different Vedas, and before they were existing even before him too. So he was basically only instrumental in basically making them into four different parts, and so that it's easy to know what are they, when to use and what time. And but Vedas were already before him, and so Vedangas came later on because the Angas. So, what is the definition of Vedanga? Is Vedasya Angani iti Vedangaha. So, Vedas Anga. Anga is a part. So, if you consider the whole Veda as the body, And this body, in order to perform any more useful function, you need the parts like hands and eyes and everything. This the being, that the physical body, the angas are very important. So Veda is the human body, and the parts of it are called anga. So Vedangas, or they came later in the period, and they were actually designed just so that we can make sense out of Vedas. Because as I said earlier, Vedas were originally revealed to the saints in deep meditation. And I briefly mentioned a note about the Prakriti language before Sanskrit. And so these Prakriti is kind of more like, if you see Avadi, right? Avadi, where we have Ramcharitmanas, they are more easy flowing, like Hindi. All of these are more easy to talk and easy flowing language. It's very natural, and it doesn't need any sophistication. But Sanskrit came later on. When the rishis heard this as a very unique voices, they began passing it by the ear until the Vedavyas came. And Vedavyas wrote them into, they categorized into, began writing on palm strips, but only, kept it as secret. And then no one ever dared to write Vedas on any other palm scripts, because that's considered as sacrilegious. And it's only passed on by the guru disciple for long time. And and the Vedangas are also given as a supplementary in order to make some sense out of Vedas. And the right now, and the what are the Vedas? So we always talk about six Vedas. So which is what you see here: Siksha, Vyakaranam, Chandaha, Niruktam, Jyotisham, Tatha, Kalpaschaiti, Chadangani, Vedasyahu, Manishinaha. So what it says is that the siksha is one part. Is Siksha is what we'll be covering later on. Siksha has all details about what to pronounce, what letters, and when letter, like when this letter comes before this letter, you have to pronounce it differently. So all these rules will be mentioned in Siksha. So we have multiple of them, like Paniniya Siksha, and that's more popular. And we only cover Panini. We don't go. There's a lot of details and a lot other ones, but we'll focus on Panini's Siksha. And Vyakaranam will be covering pretty in depth in next level. And Chandas is right now what I want to talk about. And because I already initiated the work on the Chandas, a few hour earlier with breaking up everything by the Lagu and Guru, and I want to continue that and complete that. And Niruktam is like a dictionary. They say that the world's first dictionary is Nirukta. It was in Oxford, everything came later on, but we always had Nirukta before. Nirukta, actually, what it does is that it says, it mentions this word came in so and so place of the Rig Veda Samhita, and what its meaning is. Nirukta and Nigantu, they are associated together. Nigantu is explains those words like as commentary, and Nirukta mentions the way the occurrence of those words, everything. So these together, the Vedic people, they study to make sense out of Vedas. And Jyotisha is, as we all know, there's a lot of people love that because we always want to know our future, and because we're not happy or we want to be more greedy about our future. But people know more about Jyotish, but Jyotish is just one part of it. And Jyotish, in this sense, is more in line to know when to chant what. Like, for example, what is the auspicious time to perform some ceremony, or what's the auspicious time, like, like Guru Purnima, or we have some very special dates, like special some star constellation, celestial arrangement of things. So we want to know which is a good time. And because as you see, like everything, they go on time. Everything they should Jyotish is the main one aspect that the Rishi stress is about, to know when the planets are aligned so that we'll get the best out of it. Like recently we had that Pausha Nakshatra, and we had a very good Amavasya also coming on Sunday. So these kind of very special occasions, they give very importance. And the only way to know that is through Jyotish. And Jyotish is actually very mathematical, intense calculations. And no wonder the number zero came out of the Vedas, our Sanatana Dharma. So Jyotish lies very much stress upon the mathematics. And kalpa is basically how to like, for example, Srividya, what we are learning, it's actually comes from Parashurama Kalpa Sutra. A lot of people think that the Parashurama that we all know is also the same as Parashurama that we hear is who wrote the Kalpa for the Srividya. But there is no concrete proof, but that's a common belief that it's the same Parashurama. And so Parashurama Kalpa Sutra is sutras. A kalpa is the again like manuals. In other words, manuals to do to worship, and how to do, what items to offer. They mention everything in that part, kalpa part. So all of these are what you call as the angas of Vedas. And so when it comes to in what the significance of the Vedas has been laid out in this sloka. It is Chandaha Padau tu Vedasya Hastau Kalpota Pathyate Jyotisham Ayanam Chakshur Niruktam Kshotram Uchate Siksha Granam tu Vedasya Mukham Vyakaranam Smutam Tasmat Sangha Kamadityaiva Brahmaloke Mahiyate. So what is this actually comes from Paniniya Siksha, what I was referring earlier. It says that the Chandas is a feet. Chando Pado tu Vedas. Vedas feet is Chanda, and Kalpa is a hands. Like, remember, I just said like Kalpa is a manual. It tells you what to do. So they associate the hand with the Kalpa. And Jyotisha is an eye. And as I said earlier, because we want to see the good time, as the auspicious time for anything before we do. So this lets us forecast. The forecast is associated with the eye nature, because we foresight, they call it foresight or for. So they use that eye to give that to the Jyotish. And then Niruktam is the eyes, the ears. Nirukta is because we hear all the Vedas from the Guru disciple, and without a Nirukta, you can't make any sense out of the Vedas. But do know that even though if you don't know the meaning, you'll still get the not all, but you'll get almost 80% of the benefit of the Vedas. But knowing the meaning will add a lot more bhavana to what we are chanting. And that's why they gave the Niruktam and Nigantu to basically supplement the Veda, so that the pupil can make a sense out of what they're chanting over a period of time. And so that's why they use Niruktam as an ear, because we hear and then we're trying to know what it means. And now the next is Siksha Granam. So Siksha is a nose, and Siksha, you basically know how to chant, and Vedasya Mukham. And so, and grammar and Vyakaranam, Vedasya Mukham Vyakaranam. So Vedas, the face is a Vyakaranam. You can also call as a mouth, because in order to as you know, the grammar tells us what the meaning of the word is, and we'll follow actual as per the the grammar, and we know what it is, what is the context of what the discussion of this word, and based on that we can derive the meaning of the word. So all in all, so the Chanda is a feet, the Kalpa is a hand, and Jyotisha is an eye, and Nirukta is an ear, and Siksha is the nose, and grammar is the face. So all in all, this is a short what you call a breakup of the meaning of the context of the Vedangas. And all six Vedas, where the importance of them as per their significance. And the next is Chandas. So Chandas definition is, as I said earlier, Chandas takes the role of the feet, because you see, like, Chanda, we say Pada, right? Pada also, one of the reasons why they use Pada for Padya. Padya is a prose. Padya, poetry. Gadya is prose and Padya is poetry. And so Padya, everything as I mentioned earlier is gonna be padas. And they have the chandas on, typically they define as having 4 padas. It's like a 4 feet of an animal. So each pada has its, that's why they give the name pada, feet for the Veda Purush. And and the definition of the Veda is Ahladayati iti chandaha. Sorry, the chanda's definition is Ahladayati iti chandaha. So chanda is what makes you happy or delightful. That's a natural definition of chanda. And the chanda also has various other definitions. Like it ranges from and the Veda, because the Veda originally, even before the word Veda was used, they used to use Chandas, Chandasam, for other words. Chandas was so important because everything is defined in meters in the Veda. So they gave very important to the Chandasam, the Chandas. And that's why they also refer, if you call Chandas, they call Veda, they used to be interchangeably used in the past days, in the old generations. And other one is also we can call Padyam, because all Padya, if you see, for example, Bhavani Ashtakam or everything, they have a proper rhythm. Even if you see any of the Shankaracharya sloka that he wrote, they all have a proper, like a sequence and order of chandas. They don't go, here for here and there, randomly. They gave a proper definition and proper sequence. Everything is proper, orderly. It has a proper, organically arranged letters and meters and matras, all of those. So the Padyam and Gadyam, prose. Prose also has using of chandas. But Padyam, the poetry takes a lot more, because the poem is something you can also sing. If you take any English poem, you may not be able to sing all of them. But because of the rhythmatic nature of the poetry in Sanskrit, you can actually easily add a tune, like how if you see the Lalita Sahasranamam, we are chanting in one tune, right? That is because of the nature of the chandas, anushtup chandas. So all of the chandas, you can come up with some kind of a tune that is more melodious and very pleasant to hear. And that's the nature of chandas. And other chanda is we call swachanda, like swachanda, for example, swatantra. Swatantra is different. Swachandra, chanda is like I desire. So swachanda means free. So it's my free will or free, free likes or basically our own rhythm. So they say like, he's going in his own chanda, they call, like, he's going his own rhythm of style. So it has various meaning like chandas in these terms. And so I think I'll just stop it here. It's about half an hour or so. And there will be more interesting ones in the future about once we go in detail about the chandas. You will appreciate, we can start appreciating the beauty of chandas. Because we have especially when you start chanting, like most of you probably chant Rudrastadhyai, and we have a lot of, they all talk about Trishtup, Anushtup, Bruhati, Pankti, Anushtup and Gayatri, Tushtup, and you see all these names. Even if you take, for example, the Ganpati Adarvasisham, it also talks about Nichut Gayatri and Vyahruti, lot of chandas names. So the Rishi, Chandas, and Devata, these three are very important. Rishi and Devata, of course, we know, but Chandas, in order to give a proper, highlighted, in this due light, we want to discuss on it. So I'll continue this discussion for next a few weeks.